After everything we've uncovered so far, the misunderstanding, the loneliness, the losses, the betrayals, and the unshakable goodness in the face of malice, you might wonder, what test could possibly come next? But here's something few people realize on the spiritual path: sometimes the most dangerous test isn't pain, but emptiness, not external battles, but the quiet, invisible erosion of meaning itself. Have you ever woken up one day and felt like nothing matters anymore? The things that once lit a fire in your heart suddenly seem pointless. Even your spiritual practices, the wisdom, the prayers, the meditations, feel like hollow rituals echoing in a vast, empty room. It's as though you're walking through life in a dream, watching yourself from a distance. If you've ever felt this, you're not lost, you're not broken, and no, you haven't failed. You're entering the sixth spiritual test. A trial so subtle, most people don't even recognize it for what it is. And today, right here on Daily Dharma Wisdom, we're going to gently unravel it together. Take a deep breath, because what you're about to hear may finally explain a struggle you've carried in silence for far too long. We left off with Ezen trapped in a silent, colorless season of the soul, not due to any personal crisis, nor external distraction. There was no great tragedy pulling him away from his path. Everything around him looked the same. Yet nothing felt the same. It was as though he had become a ghost, quietly haunting his own life, moving through familiar motions that no longer touched anything real inside him. The very practices that had once filled him with such deep joy now felt like empty performances. Rituals without an audience, prayers without a purpose. Days turned to weeks, and weeks to months. In this silent twilight of the spirit, Ezen began to wonder if this emptiness was some kind of punishment, perhaps for a spiritual pride he had not yet recognized. Or maybe, he feared, he had simply reached the limits of what his soul could learn. He even considered leaving the monastery altogether. Could it be that the monastic life, which had once felt so unquestionably right, was no longer his authentic path? And yet, something kept him there. Not hope, exactly, but a strange, unexplainable sense that this very emptiness was important, even though he couldn't begin to understand why. Then, one misty morning, as the meditation hall sat cloaked in silence and pale light, Ezen took his place on the worn cushion, feeling more disconnected than ever. The bell had rung, the monks had bowed, but inside him, there was only a hollow stillness. And it was then that an elderly visiting master named Kogen approached him quietly after the session. Kogen was a revered figure throughout Japan, a teacher known for guiding countless students through the deepest, most bewildering corners of awakening. He was famous for teaching not through long discourses, but through example, presence, and the occasional word spoken at precisely the right moment. He rarely addressed individual monks, but something in Ezen's silent struggle had stirred Kogen's attention, like a faint bell ringing through distant fog. "Young monk," Kogen said softly, his voice like a gentle wind through pine branches. "You look like someone who has lost something precious. Tell me, what is it that you are grieving?" Ezen was taken aback. The master's words pierced through his numbness with startling accuracy. "Master," he confessed, his voice trembling, "I don't even know what I've lost. But everything feels empty. My practice, my understanding, my sense of purpose. It's all vanished, like mist at dawn. I feel as though I'm dying inside, spiritually fading away, and I can't understand why. Or how to stop it." Kogen nodded slowly, a knowing, almost tender smile softening the lines of his ancient face. In that moment, it was as though he carried the wisdom of lifetimes in his gaze. "Ah," Kogen murmured, "you are not dying, my friend, you are being born, but you are trying to be born while still clinging to your old shell, And that is why it feels so painful. So disorienting. He then gestured gently to a tree just outside the window, where a discarded cicada shell clung to the bark, delicate, transparent, and empty. Tell me, do you think that cicada mourned the loss of its old form when it was ready to spread its wings? Do you imagine it wept for the shell it had outgrown? Ezen blinked, confused, and a little frustrated by the question. His suffering felt so heavy, so real. How could something so intangible explain it? In that quiet moment, following the old master's question about the cicada's discarded shell, Ezen couldn't hide his confusion. His heart was heavy with one pressing thought: how could losing my connection to spiritual practice be a sign of progress, rather than failure? Master, Ezen spoke hesitantly, I don't understand. How can this emptiness, this distance from my practice, be a step forward? Doesn't it mean I'm regressing, losing my way? Kogan settled beside him on the worn wooden floor of the meditation hall, carrying the infinite patience of one who had guided countless seekers through this very passage before. His presence alone felt like a shelter from the storm. Tell me, Kogan said softly, his voice as steady as a mountain stream. What were you seeking when you first began practicing seriously? Ezen didn't hesitate. The answer rose up in him like a memorized chant. Peace, wisdom, understanding, he recited, almost automatically. I wanted to transcend suffering, to find lasting happiness through spiritual realization. Kogan gave a slow, thoughtful nod. And over the years, did you find these things through your practices? Yes, Ezen replied, for many years. And that's exactly what makes this emptiness so frightening. I had found what I was looking for, and now, it's vanished, completely. There was a long, weighty pause, and then, with the gentlest of smiles, Kogan asked a question that struck Ezen like the sudden, clear toll of a temple bell. But, had you really found it? The words landed in his chest like a stone dropped into deep water. Ezen felt a ripple of realization begin to spread. What if, he thought, so much of what I called spiritual progress had really been beautiful experiences I mistook for the thing itself? He began to see how his years of effort had filled with moments of peace, brief insights, and shifting states of consciousness, each one valuable in its way, yet all as fleeting as the passing weather. He had been collecting these experiences like treasures, measuring his worth by the frequency and intensity of the feelings they produced. You see, Kogan continued with infinite gentleness, true awakening is not an experience you can have or lose. It isn't a particular state you can enter and exit like a room. It's the simple, silent recognition of what you already are, what you have always been, long before any experience ever arrived. He let those words settle in the still air between them before speaking again. But as long as you remain fascinated by spiritual feelings and states, Kogan said, you can't see beyond them to the awareness that allows all experiences to appear. Your practices have been like staring at your finger, rather than at the moon it points to. Ezen's heart tightened and expanded at once. A strange mixture of vertigo and relief flooded him, as though he were standing on the edge of a vast canyon, staring into something too enormous for the mind to grasp. So this emptiness I'm feeling, Ezen murmured, is the natural result of your readiness to stop chasing spiritual entertainment. Kogan replied, and finally discover what you truly are. Beyond all appearances, the old form of seeking has died because you have outgrown it. But you have not yet recognized what remains when all seeking stops. Kogan slowly stood to leave, his robes rustling softly like wind through dry grass. But before turning away, he offered one final, unexpected instruction, one that turned everything Ezen thought he knew upside down. Stop trying to recover your old spiritual feelings, Kogan said quietly. Stop chasing after explanations for this emptiness. Do nothing with it, just sit in the emptiness itself. Without trying to fix, understand, or escape it, and then see what's there. When you're no longer looking for anything at all. With that, the old master walked away, leaving Ezen alone in the vast, unfamiliar silence of his own unguarded awareness. For weeks afterward, Ezen practiced this paradoxical instruction. He stopped meditating to reach peaceful states, stopped reciting texts to find wisdom, stopped striving to feel anything at all. Instead, he simply sat with whatever was present, even if it was the aching absence of meaning. He allowed the emptiness itself to be his practice. And in that raw simplicity, something wordless began to take root. And so, in those quiet days that followed, Ezen stopped trying to know anything. He let himself simply be, without chasing meaning, without forcing spiritual feelings, without clinging to any image of what a monk, or a seeker, was supposed to experience. Instead of striving to feel sacred or wise, he allowed himself to feel completely ordinary, plain, and unremarkable. Strangely, from this very ordinariness, something quietly extraordinary began to emerge. Ezen noticed that even in his emptiness, something was still aware of the emptiness. Even when everything felt meaningless, something subtle remained, something witnessing the meaninglessness itself. This gentle, witnessing awareness wasn't a spiritual state that came and went like the moments of peace or insight he'd chased for years. It wasn't a flash of ecstasy, or a vision, or an altered state of mind. It was like a vast, open sky, always present behind the drifting clouds of experience. Silent, clear, constant. It had no qualities he could describe, no impressive, sacred flavor. It didn't sparkle or radiate. It was simply there, mysteriously, undeniably present, a steady, wordless awareness resting quietly in the background of every moment. And then, one ordinary afternoon, as Ezen sat quietly in the monastery garden, feeling his usual emptiness, watching the wind stir the branches of a nearby tree, the recognition arrived so softly, so simply, he almost missed it. He realized that this quiet, aware presence, the one he had spent so long overlooking, was precisely what he had been seeking all along. It wasn't hidden behind his experiences, waiting to be uncovered through effort. It was the very thing having every experience. It wasn't something he could achieve through meditation or prayer. It was what had been meditating. It wasn't a reward for spiritual effort. It was the effortless, timeless ground of his very existence. And with that, something fell away. The need for his old spiritual enthusiasm never returned, and it didn't need to. Ezen saw now that he no longer depended on particular spiritual feelings or experiences to feel whole. When joy came, it was welcome. When peace visited, it was cherished, but neither was necessary for his well-being. He had found something infinitely more reliable than any temporary state, the unshakable presence that remained constant through every possible experience, including emptiness itself. If you, too, are experiencing this kind of profound disorientation, feeling spiritually empty or disconnected from the practices that once nourished you, consider for a moment, what if this is not failure? What if this emptiness isn't a collapse, but a graduation? What if the space you're feeling is clearing the way for something far beyond experience, a simple, quiet recognition of what you are? When you stop trying to be anything special at all, let's practice resting in that together. Right now, close your eyes, if you wish, and notice whatever is present within you at this very moment. Perhaps it's boredom, perhaps it's a lingering emptiness, or a restless confusion, maybe it's nothing at all. And now, rather than trying to fix, explain, or escape these feelings, simply notice what's aware of them. That gentle awareness itself isn't dramatic. It isn't bright or exciting. It's more like the silence between sounds, the pause between breaths, the space between your thoughts. Don't try to grasp it or turn it into a new kind of spiritual experience. Just let yourself be that awareness, the way you let yourself breathe without thinking about it. And notice how this aware presence needs nothing. It seeks nothing. It lacks absolutely nothing. It is already, completely fulfilled, simply being what it is. And what it is you. When you are not trying to be anything else. By letting go of your attachment to spiritual feelings and experiences, you're being pointed toward your true nature, toward what you actually are. Beyond any state of mind or passing sensation. Like Ezen, discovering the unshakable awareness quietly present even in his emptiness. You, too, are being invited to recognize the indestructible foundation that has always been here. Waiting, behind every possible experience of life. And with this quiet recognition, you have found the beginning of real freedom. And so, dear friend, if you find yourself in that silent space of emptiness, remember, it isn't a sign that you've lost your way. It may be the quiet doorway to the most profound discovery of your life. Thank you for walking this path with us today. If this message touched something within you, I invite you to gently support our growing community by subscribing to Daily Dharma Wisdom. It's a small click, but it means the world to us, and it helps this wisdom reach others who may be silently waiting for it. And don't forget, in video 7, we'll explore another beautiful teaching, how to navigate the subtle tests that arise when even your success becomes a source of suffering. You won't want to miss it. Until then, may you rest in the quiet awareness of your true nature. See you soon.